Alan Watt, our regular guest, joins us. Alan, we have a lot of news stations picking us up this week, and I want to get into the bigger picture and where the globalists are taking us. You know, when I talk to mainstream media, when they interview me, or when I discuss things, with the establishment press, I'm always talking to these reporters, and I think most of them genuinely are ignorant. Just like most Americans you talk to don't even know what the Fourth or Fifth Amendment is, much less the Second or First. And it's very, very sad, but everything was set up on eugenics. Everything was set up to carry out a culling of the population. Everything is this highly engineered society. And I don't think a lot of even new listeners or even some longtime listeners understand just how much of our society is engineered and dominated by these people. So break down in total, in your worldview, what the New World Order is, what it stands for, what it's pushing, the phase we're in right now, and where it's ultimately leading us in this, quote, final revolution of dehumanization and tyranny. Alan Watt.
Yeah, we can trace it, as I say, back in their own books, in fact, in recorded history, allowed history, that which they've published for us to read, right back to the 1700s, when the elite establishment, who already ruled the moneyed system, they'd taken over. A group actually were sent in to Europe to take over the moneyed system and become, as Albert Pike said himself in his own book, Morals and Dogma, the masters over the masters of the world. In other words, to create central banking systems that would be all linked together for a global system that might not appear for another 200 years. And everything runs from, in a moneyed system, from the capstone of money downwards. Laws, governments, everything goes cap in hand to the guys with the money at the top. So you can create an entire system structured beneath you, a pyramid beneath you, if you control all of the money and the lending and the borrowing. So it was not too hard to create that kind of system. They also could eradicate all small competition of small money lenders, small banks, and so on the way. As long as they were in charge of the money supply for entire countries, they ruled those countries. But along with that, too, was a religion. And the religion was based on a natural existing order of elite, intellectual elites, who had already been doing the Darwinian experiment of specialized breeding for mates for a long, long time. Ian Taylor, a scientist in Canada, put an excellent book out on the histories of some of these families, such as Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin was about the fifth generation of Darwins who only married into the Wedgwood family. All the wives were taken from the Wedgwood family for 5 generations. And when Charles Darwin's wife died, he married his mother's sister, a Wedgwood again. And the idea being they were trying to mate up scientifically to create a scientific elite on one hand. This is also validated by Huxley. The Huxleys were also related to the Darwins, and they admitted that that was part of the experiment to create a guardian elite along the lines of Plato and his Republic, where they'd be the guardians of the planet, the natural, superior Superman type, with virtue, intelligence, common sense, who would rule all the lesser peoples in a standing order all the way down. And on the way, they also needed other organizations that would help them implement a new system and hold it. That's why they introduced first Rosicrucianism, then Freemasonry. That was the existing order. Now they've bypassed that. But the same special breeding program that's all through eugenics still goes on. The idea being, if you have a woman who's gifted in a scientific area or mathematics, you mate them up with a similar type of male, you see. But they must have other qualities, too, that they've passed on for generations that can be validated in a check before they're mated together. Now, if you grow up in Europe and you study the elite families, you'll notice that none of them ever picked their own wives. They have teams of people who literally go through the genealogies for potential mates and match them up. That's how Prince Charles was matched up with Lady Diana.
It's arranged marriages, just like with cattle breeding.
Exactly. And in fact, when the American Eugenics Society came out full force, backed by the Carnegie first, and then the Rockefeller Foundation, that mandated enforced sterilization for inferior types. It said they could not bring inferior types into this future. That means anyone with hereditary Gentlemen's Association because they were the best ones to do with breeding. And now they were transferring that data onto humans. They came up with the idea, backed by Rockefeller, that they would institute a national census. And since its inception, the purpose of census was to take data on physical and mental health, moral behavior, etc., prison records, all of that, collect all of that data, and eventually to start eradicating those people they saw as being hereditary problems to their perfect upcoming utopia.
And let me stop you there because I want listeners to understand something. Everything you're hearing is part of mainline history. Alan's not telling you anything that isn't in all the major textbooks, the history books, but they think it's good. When the Texas board asked the head state psychiatrist, why are 67%, 68% of the kids on psychotropic drugs in foster care, he said because they have bad genes. They deserve it. And they set up the social welfare networks. They set up the health departments to carry out racial hygiene. Hitler only adopted what was taught in England and the United States. And now that's what their zoning is about. That's what their animal ID is about. It's what taking over the farms and ranches is about. They've got to take over our infrastructure and our access to money and our access to independence and freedom so they can force us into the one-child policy and through the new economy of the green economy, that's really the eugenics economy of reduced standard of living so that you can't afford to have children. It's all openly stated and now even being introduced on mainstream TV and everywhere. So I wanted to throw in that everything you're saying is on the record, that the Darwins and 3 other families only intermarried together for 5, 6, 7 generations, but that it created aberrant, mentally ill monsters.
Mm-hmm. When you look at the Huxleys, for instance, the Huxleys were descended from the Darwins too. They were also intermarried.
Yes.
And the Huxleys, especially Julian and Aldou's father, literally spent a career chopping up people's bodies to try and get secrets of life and all this kind of stuff. In other words, the precursor to what we call eugenics today, or genetics today. And
as you said, Cold Springs Harbor is IBM Human Genome Today, and the head had to step down saying blacks weren't humans. That's always been the eugenics board. Now they take blood forcibly for 36 years from everybody in the Western world at birth. They've now admitted that. And I have 2 mainstream news articles today. This is out of the Buffalo News. Ruling allows taser use to get DNA, may be nation's first ruling. And they say cattle prods, electric shock, torture in the federal ruling is now officially legal to make you answer questions, to make you urinate in a cup, to make you give a blood sample at checkpoints. Arde Saveda, the court's ruling here in Austin, will be able to taser you if you don't submit to the blood. Torture is now out in the open. We go from it being Joseph Mengele and bad to it being something we only do to Al-Qaeda to the Buffalo Daily News openly saying it's good. Go ahead.
Well, yes, because we're now since 2001, especially, and that was the prime purpose for this whole New World Order kickoff. We're being trained now that we're in an authoritarian system, and you simply do what you're told. That's what we've all been trained since 9/11. That was the kickoff. Arthur C. Clarke, who was put up there, see all the big stars in novels and futurist societies, etc. And this has been explained and admitted to by big foundations themselves. They fund these novelists to write the future. It becomes familiar to us as an idea, then it's augmented by movies and so on until it comes into reality, and we don't think about it as being strange or that it shouldn't exist. It seems natural. It's called predictive programming. And Arthur C. Clarke, in his book 2001, even though he set it in space, was actually giving you the kickoff for the new order of things, where a new planet would rule. In other words, that's what he's really telling you. A new type.
And later in the book, everybody gets microchips. Everybody communicates with microchips through telepathic systems. And then he later, of course, worked for MI6 after World War II. For those that don't know, OSS during World War II. Yep. He invented the telecommunications satellite. And he gave interviews saying, no, this is what we really planned for you, just like H.G. Wells and everybody else. Go ahead.